Thank you, Michel. Pavel, I think you made the two experience of criminalization and decriminalization, the consumption, so please explain us your experience.
Good morning. When we know that the prohibition doesn't work and causes enormous harms, killing people, in fact, being responsible for HIV epidemics around the globe, the fundamental question is what works? And there is several interesting experiences. One is from the Czech Republic. The first president of the former Czechoslovakia and later on Czech Republic, Václav Havel, submitted in 1990 to the Czechoslovak parliament the bill to remove all the criminal penalties for the possession of illicit substances for personal use. Parliament that time has approved the new bill, and all the penal sanctions were removed from the legislation. That time I was a drug czar in the Czech Republic. That enabled me to introduce a well-balanced drug policy, which was nicely written, but whenever you design a strategy, like drug strategy or any kind of health policy, the question is how can you implement that and how effective the implementation is. And we were successful enough in introducing good harm reduction, public health-oriented strategies, including the needle exchange schemes, including the HIV prevention programs, including the testing among former hidden population of drug users, which was not simply easily accessed. We introduced outreach programs for this hidden population in order to provide the hidden population with health and harm reduction services. We introduced the opioid substitution treatment programs. And in 10 years, the outcomes were quite astonishing. Even I was surprised as an expert in the field. So the Czech Republic had and currently has one of the lowest HIV seroprevalence rates among injecting drug users. We have one of the lowest mortality rates, lowest number of overdoses due to use of drugs. We have very low violent drug-related crime and overall drug-related crime. Certainly, there is interesting part of the story from the Czech Republic because 10 years later, the newly elected government where one of ex-drug user was very closely linked to one of the ministers, actually the most important minister, Minister of Interior, and he was a hardliner. And he convinced the minister to submit a new bill again to penalize the drug possession, and that happened. That happened after a long public debate and an expert debate. And unfortunately, actually, during the debate, we were able to push the government to start the continuous monitoring of the new punitive law. And we designed absolutely explicit criteria. How should we measure if the new punitive law, again, the criminalization of drug users, if that works or not? And in a 3-year study, the outcome was, again, astonishing. There was zero effect, positive effect on drug use of the new law, and there were severe, significant, negative public health, but also criminal justice impacts. So we decided again to remove the criminalization and the drug offenses for possession for personal use from the penal code. And this is the story of the Czech Republic, which is still one of the interesting examples of a good practice, but it's not alone. Because, for example, Portugal has removed criminal sanctions for possession for personal use in 2001. And in 15 years, the incidence of new HIV cases or AIDS cases at the end dropped 91%, 91%. Can you imagine what is the real public benefit of that? It's phenomenal. But also, Portugal reported 18% of savings, social cost, and this is mainly linked to keeping the productivity, not losing the job, because if you go to jail, you lose the job, logically. So the social savings are also fascinating, actually. Also the savings due to the fact that in 2001, Portugal reported approximately 15,000 drug-related crime per year for possession, actually drug-related crime per year. 10 years later, and this is still the same, it's 1/3, it's approximately 5,000. This is Europe, but if you look at what happened in California since introducing in 1966 the decriminalization of cannabis possession, the savings are $1 billion per year. So the economic impact of decriminalization is enormous, but for me as a public health officer and for physician, even more important are health positive effects, looking at the morbidity and mortality, looking at the HIV and hepatitis epidemics. So what is the conclusion? There is no, looking at the scientific evidence, there is no zero arguments for keeping the punitive, prohibitive drug policies on the legal side. That means just penalizing, criminalizing the drug use itself, and certainly also possession of illicit substances for personal use. It's clear that the decriminalization itself is not enough, that that has to be accompanied by social and public health and harm reduction measures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pavel, for this